Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome at this digital event during the Hannover Show on cooperation on the wings of sustainability. It will not be a surprise to anyone that the aviation sector is badly hit by the COVID pandemic. Not only the airlines are badly hit, but also the aviation aircraft construction companies. And at the same time, this industry has a huge challenge to achieve emission-free aviation somewhere in this century. If we look to this situation of the crisis, many national governments have come up with programs to support their industries. However, the huge challenge of emission-free aviation is too big for any country to solve by itself. And at the same time, it takes a very long and consistent program to achieve this goal. So cooperation between countries and their specific competences is needed to cope with this challenge and to achieve this goal. Germany and the Netherlands have shown multiple times in the past to be able to have this cooperation in the aviation industry and sector. And only recently, a joint agreement on technology and innovation has been signed between the ministers of both countries. Today, we will hear the opinion of both the German as well as the Dutch aerospace centers. But first, we will hear the opinion of the Director General of the Dutch Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate Policy, Mr. Focco Vijselaar.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor for me to contribute to this session at the Hannover Messe. Before I start, I must say I regret not being in Hannover, but that's how it is nowadays. The efforts to organize this event virtually are much appreciated by me, though it would not compare to seeing all the new technology up close. Today, I would like to touch briefly on the following topics: the global challenges for the aerospace industry, the considerable contribution that stakeholders in the Netherlands can make, and what this means for bilateral cooperation within the EU and in particular with Germany. But let me start by going into the challenges for the aerospace industry. Aviation faces the daunting challenge to become a sustainable industry. Following the Paris Agreement on carbon dioxide emissions in 2015, a sustainable aviation agreement was reached in the Netherlands already in 2019. This agreement sets targets for clean aviation, such as zero-emission airports by 2030, 50% decrease of emissions for flights leaving the Netherlands by 2050, and zero-emissions flights by 2070. It is clear that only with strong cooperation between all stakeholders we will be able to reach those targets. And what exactly can be the contribution of the Netherlands? Well, the Netherlands is in a position to play a major role in meeting the challenge of sustainable aviation, because in terms of numbers of passengers and pre-COVID, Schiphol Airport was the third biggest airport in Europe in 2018, and an important hub for a major airliner. And based on the heritage of Fokker Industries, we have an innovative aerospace industry, the sixth largest in Europe. And where we are strong in is lightweight structures with technologies pertaining to thermoplastics and other composite technologies, onboard electric systems, maintenance and overhaul, and production technologies. Besides that, we have a world-class public R&D infrastructure, including the Royal Netherlands Aerospace Centre, NLR, and the Delft University of Technology. We also have a world-class energy sector and chemical industry, leading the way in new fuel technologies, including those based on hydrogen. And at last, but not least, we have the national government guiding and supporting the process with regulation and financial schemes. And to take just an example of that, this year we will have a 10 million scheme to prepare Dutch stakeholders to participate in the EU Clean Aviation Partnership, and a 150 million scheme for research and innovation for sustainability and digitization in the mobility sectors, including the aerospace industry. But It is true, not a single European country can face the major challenges the aviation industry is facing today on its own. So it is clear we need international cooperation and European cooperation first. Germany has been a trusted partner for the Netherlands, for example on the public level, sharing the responsibility for 2 wind tunnels. Furthermore, stakeholders in the Netherlands have been part of an MOU with Airbus since 2005. Whereby this MOU has been renewed in February this year. This Memorandum of Understanding provides an excellent structure for enhanced R&D cooperation between the aerospace industries in the Netherlands and Germany. Our industries and research institutes will team up with German partners through the EU Clean Aviation Partnership. We cannot afford to waste these opportunities for cooperation in our mission to make aviation sustainable. Through combining our strengths, I have trust in the road that lies ahead of us. Thank you for your attention, and I wish you the best of luck during this year's Hannover Messe. Hopefully next year we're able to raise our classes again physically in Hannover.
Thank you, Mr. Vijselaar. I'm very happy to hear that you encourage this bilateral collaboration. Now we will switch over to Germany to Professor Dr. Anke Kaysser-Pyzalla, and she's the chair of the German Aerospace Center.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, first of all, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. We have all no doubt experienced firsthand the impact of the ongoing pandemic. COVID-19 is changing the air transport industry and the wider economy, and its effects are being felt in addition to those caused by climate change. These 2 issues both demand swift and decisive action, but we must see this as an opportunity for air transport as an integral component of global mobility. Society is rightly calling out for new technologies that will enable each and every one of us to stay mobile.
May I ask you some questions? First of all, what do you see as the role of the DLR towards this emission-free aviation?
With its 25 institutes and facilities actively engaged in air transport research, DLR drives the transformation to environmentally friendly flight. In our work at DLR, we look beyond individual technologies and consider aircraft and the wider air transport sector as an integrated system. Through our air transport research, we have acquired the necessary expertise to handle such complex systems. We see our role as that of an architect. We work in close collaboration with the air transport and aeronautics sector, from fundamental research right through to its applications. DLR's ultimate goal in aerospace research is zero-emission flight. By getting there will require a disruptive approach and novel technologies, including new sources of energy, such as sustainable aircraft fuels and hydrogen, revolutionary aircraft and propulsion system concepts that use these sources of energy, and a complete rethinking of flight routing with climate-optimized flight paths that take into account, in particular, the effect of water vapor in the atmosphere.
And how can the German-Dutch cooperation between knowledge centers, government and private sector contribute to this ambitious goal?
The key of mutual success lies in the continuation of our long cooperation. This includes the coordination, but also the merging of our competencies in aerospace research. One example is AT1, the joint subsidy for marketing our ATM capabilities towards external customers like Eurocontrol EU, but also in our comparatively international activities. Currently, DLR and NLR are together members in CESAR 2020 and applying collectively for the new partnership in Horizon Europe, the DSR 3. Joint cooperation in European associations such as ERIA, the Association of European Research Establishments in Aeronautics, and ESRA, the Association of the European Space Research Establishments, is also part of our cooperation. One major goal is to position with one European voice commonality interests and research topics to increase the chances of success of winning proposals with DLR and NLR participation to EU calls and EU framework programs for research. In this sense, DLR strongly supports the ERIA chairmanship of Michel.
And how can the Dutch approach contribute to your efforts?
NLR and DLR cooperate since 1973. DLR is looking forward to increase and strengthen its cooperation with NLR, as we know NLR as a competent and trustful partner. NLR complements DLR through its very application-oriented research and the high innovation potential. With its quick and pragmatic implementation and transfer of research results to industry and business. And also through its strong network with academia, industry, and business. This results also in a fundamentally existing multidisciplinary approach in all research approaches and a very rapid response to inquiries, as well as very well and multidisciplinary trained employees.
And if I may ask, what is your personal plea with regards to emission-free aviation?
The route to zero-emission air transport is characterized by the cooperative and highly innovative approach to research shared by all parties involved. The results of this research must then flow directly into the development of new products. We should use interdisciplinary and application-oriented research exemplifying this, as do its flagship projects, industry-oriented test facilities, and technology demonstrators. In the field of zero-emission air transport, together we have multiple complementary research approaches for a wide range of application scenarios. It uses a variety of dedicated research infrastructure components for this purpose. However, we still have a long way to go to achieve our goal of zero-emission air transport. The next important step should be to construct demonstrators at the level of complete aircraft.
Thank you very much for your clear answers. And now we'll switch over to the Netherlands Aerospace Center, to Michel Peters, the CEO of Royal Dutch Aerospace Center.
Thank you very much for the introduction and for having me here in this session. To start with, I fully agree with Mrs. Kaysser-Pyzalla, with Anke, and I'm pleased to say that DLR and NLR have a track record together of approximately 50 years indeed. Not only do we share the German-Dutch wind tunnels located at DNW in the Netherlands and Germany, we also have been participating in many projects, and we combine our strength in alliances for European projects, such as in the AT1 Consortium and the ATM Research Alliance. But nowadays, we are facing a challenge that takes the definition of cooperation to a higher level, as it concerns all of us: global warming. And just to be sure what we are talking about, in 2017, direct emissions from aviation accounted for nearly 4% of total CO2 emissions in the EU. Next to this, aviation has an impact on the climate through the release of non-CO2 emissions, for instance, nitrogen oxides, water vapor, and sulfide and soot particles at high altitudes. Last year, a study conducted by the European Aviation Safety Agency, EASA, estimated that this has an impact as important as those of CO2 alone. Although the contribution of aviation is relatively small at this moment, it's obvious we do need to act now. I'm convinced that most of you, like me, are getting more aware of your own behavior when it comes to travel, especially since the last few years before Corona kicked in and discussions about flying shame took off. And that's great, but mind you, a very large group of the world population has never been able to fly. We must be prepared for an increasing demand as soon as the world economy will flourish again. Being more conscious about our own needs to fly will not be sufficient to avoid the drastic repercussions of climate change. For this reason, and also considering the European Green Deal and the UN Sustainable Development Goals, I also strongly believe disruptive innovation is needed to reach the goal NLR has set, the climate neutral aviation by 2050 and zero emission by 2070. Although this seems far away in the future, consider that the lifespan of an aircraft is more than 20 years. Unfortunately, we do not have one silver bullet as a solution. Mrs. Kaysser-Pyzalla mentioned it as well. We need the whole package, improving aircraft and engine technology, air traffic management and aircraft and airport operation, sustainable fuels, and even perhaps economic measures. But I'm very optimistic as things are really happening. As one example of many cases, in close collaboration with stakeholders, so-called ZEMA Group, which is a collective of several aviation research organizations from all over the globe, including, of course, DLR and NLR, wants to shape a transformation in order to achieve zero-emission aviation. Related to this, recently, the Dutch NAG signed an agreement with Airbus, enabling them to create an ecosystem, also in the Netherlands, that accelerates implementation of new innovative and disruptive solutions. And a national research and development program, most likely to be initiated soon, will enable Dutch parties to play a substantial role in R&D and the supply chains for Airbus. This national R&D program could be considered as the Dutch counterpart of the highly successful German LUFO program. In short, aviation makes it possible for public and cargo to travel easily from one place to another. This contributes to a stable society as nations interact more and more as allies instead of foes. The downside is that impact on our climate also reaches further than our national borders. With that in mind, great responsibility arises. Therefore, together we need to interact more efficient across all kinds of technology sectors so that we can benefit from each other to reach this one common goal of zero emission in aviation within the next decades. Building demonstrators, as my German colleague mentioned, through intensive cooperation will indeed be a next step to show what we are capable of. Only leading by example, we can show the world that it is possible to achieve sustainable growth. DLR and NLR have done so in the past, and I'm convinced that we will be able to do so in the future. Thank you very much.
All in all, by hearing all the talks today, we will see that aviation will continue to grow and will come back stronger than before. At the same time, both Germany and the Netherlands acknowledge the fact that there is a huge challenge to achieve this emission-free aviation somewhere in this century. Based on their earlier successes in cooperation, both countries see a lot of opportunities to work together to achieve this goal and be a frontrunner in this very important transition. Thank you for watching this webinar this afternoon. You will see the email address in the back if you want to have further information. Please be so free to ask them. I wish you a very good afternoon.